Hi everyone, it's Ahmad Matikian here, and I want to thank you once again for coming so well prepared to our first workshop and for your active participation. At our next workshop, we will continue with the PTO case study, and I look forward to seeing what hypotheses you've come up with. In this presentation, we will look at the guiding principles to generating hypotheses effectively. A hypothesis is an educated guess that allows us to focus our efforts when gathering information. Good hypotheses, tested with well-crafted questions and reliable data sources, lead us to meaningful insights. So how do we make sure that the hypotheses we generate will lead us in the right direction? First, our hypotheses must stay relevant to the project scope. So we need to ask ourselves, how will this analysis help our client move towards a solution or recommendation? Secondly, our hypotheses must test the connections between what we observe. For example, if we see that our client's products are not as technically advanced as some of their competitors, we might want to analyze what percentage, if any, of their customers is switching as a direct result of this. In this way, we're testing the relationship between product features and sales. Hypotheses are not all created equal, so we need to prioritize them according to their significance on our assignment, how much effort it would take to validate them, and how reliable our findings are likely to be. This allows us to structure and sequence our analysis according to must-haves, nice-to-haves, and only if we have spare time. Finally, it's important to remind ourselves that if a client has invited us to help them with a business problem, they've probably already invested many hours thinking about it. So they expect us to pick up where they left off. And therefore it's very frustrating for them if our analysis does not further their thinking. When we generate hypotheses, it's always worth considering what the client already knows or has told us so that we can go beyond the obvious. When we frame our hypotheses, we have some options. We can look historically to analyze events that have either had a negative or positive effect on the business. Or we can look to the future at likely scenarios that again might have a negative or positive effect on our client. Of course, it is easier to test historical data than forecast future outcomes. But it's also good practice to generate a variety of hypotheses to provide us with different ways of looking at the situation. As mentioned earlier, the value of our analysis comes from our ability to show causal relationships that provide the client direction and offer them valid options to solve their problem. We can do this by starting with an observation and then expanding it to formulate our hypothesis. Let's run through an example. Our client wishes to reduce net customer migration or churn by 10% within 18 months. Through our initial observations, we suspect that their call center is underperforming. This is an observational hypothesis. And it's relatively easy to test because there are standard parameters against which we can assess call center performance. For example, response times, resolution rates, and so on. However, even if we were to invest the time to prove that the call center is underperforming, this alone does not help the client to make a decision. So we're not going to start our analysis just yet. First, we need to expand our observation into a hypothesis that tests the causal relationship. We can do this in two ways. We can ask, so what if the call center is underperforming? The effect. Or, why is it underperforming? The cause. Well, let's bring together some other observations we've had. Let's hypothesize that poor call center performance has led to declining customer satisfaction rates. This would be a cause-effect relationship. Let's also hypothesize that the reason the call center is underperforming is because their technology is not up to speed. Notice that each one of our observations is easy to test. We can assess the call center performance against some parameters. We can quickly find historical trends in our customer satisfaction rates from the marketing team. And we can check with IT services whether the CRM package is up to date. But the value for our client is derived when we can show that upgrading the CRM will result in better call center performance, which will lead to higher satisfaction rates and ultimately lower customer turnover. The process of generating these relational hypotheses ensures our focus is on providing clients with clarity and insights rather than simply facts and figures. The final step in our preparation is to create our analysis grid, which lists our prioritized hypotheses, their respective analysis questions, the most reliable and relevant data sources for each question, and who will conduct that analysis and by when. Now we're finally ready to start our data collection.